There is also another auto-corrective mode, the self-correction within a religious school. There is also a self-corrective mode or auto-correction within the religious school, which is called telesis. This interaction between the social mutation or the circumstantial force and the telesis, religious school splits. This splits is called schism, and this split is two types. If the circumstantial forces are more and radical, then the split is called reformation. We find this kind of reformation in Hinduism, Buddhism splits. We find it in Protestant movement, in Christianity. Another type of split we find, which is called renewal. When the telesis is more and the circumstantial forces are less, then it is called renewal. We find it the Lingaites. We find it the Brahmo Samaj. That is a kind of renewal. What happened after Ramanujacharya? Renewal or reformation? Let us see. Ramanuja was not considered as the founder of Sri Vaishnavism. We have heard from revered Swami Prasannatmananda about Nath-Muni. I found in one of the books that Nath-Muni, 19th century figure, is a key, the first acharyas of Sri Vaishnava tradition. He is known for compiling the Divya Prabandham. Maharaj also referred that. So 4,000 Tamil devotional hymns he compiled. And he also, along with that, he worked on the traditional Sanskrit, especially the Sanskrit Vedas, Smritis, and Gita, and combined these Divya Prabandham and the traditional Sanskrit. They combined together. He did the work on Ubhaya Vedantism. I think Kripabayanandaji, he also referred that Ramanuja used to call it the Vedantic work instead of Vishishtadvaita. So this Ubhaya Vedantism, actually the dual path, it was a contribution of Nath Munis. This Divya Prabandham was the heart, emotional heart and the spiritual soul of Sri Vaishnavism. And this Ubhaya Vedantism actually laid the foundation for the Vishishtadvaita. Nath Muni's work, and after Ramanuja, on 11th century, Ramanuja's systematic, integrated approach to the philosophy makes him a major transitional figure in Sri Vaishnavism. The two paths, the traditional Vedantism and the Divya Prabandha, this Ubhaya Vedantism actually started from Nath Muni's era. After the passing away of Ramanuja, 1137, See, his legacy profoundly shaped the Sri Vaishnava tradition. Immediate successors and leadership structure. We know that Shankaracharya assigned his 4 main disciples to protect and spread 4 Vedas from 4 mathas. Similarly, Ramanuja appointed 74 chief disciples called Simhasanapatis. He organized his extensive followers to ensure his philosophical and religious movement, that is, the Sri Vaishnava tradition, to be continued. This group included 700 sannyasis, 12,000 celibate followers, they were called Ekangits, 300 women, and many non-Brahmins. Following Ramanuja's leadership, Sri Vaishnavism moved away from the single guru disciple. Prior to Ramanuja, there was one guru, one disciple. But in Ramanuja's life, we found there are many gurus Ramanuja had. We have also heard Ramanujacharya and others. So, from Ramanuja's era, from different gurus and many disciples, that model, the previous model was called Oriana model, but afterwards it moved to many disciples and many gurus. This model, they shifted. This change was taken place for the urgent need to expand and spread religion. And the disciples, they had specific role and specific work. As for example, Desharthi, one of the chief disciples of Ramanuja, his nephew, his work was temple administrator and head Srirangam temple, the lineage to continue. Then Embar, another disciple, he was the preacher, propagation of teachings. Like that, they had specific work and designation. Then, theological and sectarian schism. Now, Sri Vaishnavism splits. I have already mentioned that Ramanuja during his period always maintained the integrated approach between Ubhaya Vedantasam, the Sanskrit Vedas and Divya Prabandha. For nearly 2 centuries after Ramanuja, Sri Vaishnavism continued and maintained this unified identity as Ubhaya Vedantism, honoring both Sanskrit Vedas and Tamil Divya Prabandha as scriptural authority. Over time, differences emerged regarding the relative importance of Sanskrit and Tamil scriptures. Some teachers emphasized Sanskrit Vedas, while others focused on Tamil Divya Prabandha. This led a major split in the community in 2 sects. The Tengalai and Velagalai means southern and northern cultures, respectively. Galai means language, which manifests culture also. Vedagalai or northern language means Sanskrit. And southern language means Tamil. This north and south means the north of Tamil country and south means Tamil country. And the north starts in Kanchipuram. And the southern means the Kaveri Delta. So this is the cultural difference between these 2 sects and the geographical difference between 2 sects. There was theological difference also. on the issue of prapatti. We know the term prapatti. The prapatti means an approach to God. Afterwards, it became surrender or sharanagati. This theological split, actually we can understand from Sri Ramakrishna's analogy of kitten and baby monkey. We know the kitten, it surrenders his mother completely. But the Vedanta sect, they said, is surrender is sufficient or grace is required? So Vedanta, they actually was in opinion that surrender and grace both are required. But according to Tengalai, is only surrender is required. On this theological issue also, they separated, these two sects separated. Then intellectual and spiritual flourishing. The post-Ramanuja period, we saw a prolific output of theological and philosophical work. The key figures included Pillai Lokacharya, a leading Tengalai theologian whose works are especially important because he laid the basis of Tengalai philosophy. His Tattatraya means the God, Sri, Lakshmi, and Prapatti. These are the three. Tattatraya and Sri Vachana Bhushanam are very important. He also wrote Upadesha Grantham, etc. Then the next is Vedanta Deshika, a preeminent Vedagalai scholar, the poet known for his rigorous philosophical treatise and devotional hymn. As he was in the sect of Vedagalai, so he wrote Tamil and Sanskrit both. Some of his Tamil works are Adhivara Sangraham, dealing with spiritual competence, Ahara Niyama, dietic rules, and he in Sanskrit wrote Yadava Abhudaya and other classics which were highly appreciated by scholars. Besides, there were other scholars also, as for example Manavala Munigala, and then Prasara Bhatra, etc. Then the temple patronage and socio-political changes. Post-Ramanuja era, the temples played a vital role in Sri Vaishnava tradition. They were not just a place of worship, but also served as a powerhouse of social and political legitimacy. Administrative and economic center, temples controlled vast amount of wealth because of the patronage of kings like Vijayanagara kings. Temples had huge properties like land, estates, etc., and acted as a major economic institution. Then the temple became the source of political legitimacy, like Roman Catholics or the Buddhist temples. Sri Vaishnava temples had more than sufficient wealth to exert control and to gain popularity from public. As a result, they legitimized their rule and presented them as a powerful religious institution. As the temples became the central powerhouse for economy, politics, and legislative control in the post-Ramanuja era. Two opposing groups like Bengali and Vedagalai sects sharply competed to gain the control over the temple authority. Then temple rituals and arts. Sri Vaishnava worship, including temple construction and iconography, was governed by agamas. There were two important agamas. One is Vaikhanasa and other is Pancharatra. Both the agamas were approved by Ramanuja. The term agama in ancient Buddhist scripture we find it means tradition. Agama means tradition, but Hindus interpret it as a composite of the first letter A. A means agata, come. Ga means gata, gun, and ma is mata, approved. The Vaikhasana seems to have managed most of the Vaishnava temples in Tamil country in the days of Ramanuja. And then came the change. The Pancharatra became prominent. Tirupati, Alagarkoli, all those temples follow the Vaikhanasa system of worship. While Kanchi, Varadaraja temple, Srirangam, Kumbakonam, these temples, they follow Pancharatra system. The essential difference between two systems of agamas is that Vaikhasana temple has more mantra, and the Pancharatra has more tantra as the part of worship rituals. Then the architectural form also. Before Ramanuja, temples were built in Dravidian style. The early Pallava cave temples changed in the later period to Chola Pandal, the multi-towered temple. We find it in Srirangam and Chidambaram. The impact of external forces, like other religious schools in that age, Sri Vaishnava community and its temple faced severe hardship from Muslim invasion and the British colonial rule. Temples were robbed and the community cultures and economy suffered. Despite all these challenges, the core teachings and rituals set up by Ramanuja survived, and the tradition continued to grow and adapt. Legacy and modern relevance. Ramanuja created an all-inclusive spiritual equality, irrespective of caste and gender, by giving them Dasha Diksha, nowadays which is called Pancha Samaskara. Ramanuja's teachings on social equality and spiritual inclusion are still important today. And it is a kind of model for the social reform. The two main branches of his tradition, Vedagalai and Tengalai, continue to exist. We heard about love. I'm not going detail about that philosophy. But this kind of social change, as Sri Ramanuja did, to all-inclusive, spreading all-inclusiveness and the social equality, that's a great contribution of Ramanuja. Now let us ask ourselves, what kind of changes we see after Ramanuja? Whether it is renewal or reformation. Obviously, it is renewal. Because both the branches of his tradition, Vedagalai and Tengalai, they have different rituals and theological views, but they both follow Ramanuja's core belief and they trace their origin back to him. Thus, it is renewal and not the reformation. These were the changes we find post-Ramanuja period. Thank you.
Very calm, deliberate way, well within time actually, has surveyed several hundred years of post-Ramanuja development in a very rich paper. I was just thinking, we are very fortunate because I spent most of my time reading about Advaita Vedanta. These are many areas which I did not know much about or nothing about in fact. And so I am personally very enriched, as I think we all feel. So many things Maharaj has said, but one or two terms. One term very important when we are talking about Ramanuja, Vishishtadvaita, is this term Ubhaya Vedanta. This must be stressed because the one single significant feature of Vishishtadvaita Vedanta is that it's simultaneously a Tamil tradition and a Sanskrit tradition. And this started, as Maharaj pointed out, before Ramanujacharya with Natham and others. Maharaj mentioned Vedanta Desika. I remember reading quite a long time ago, decades ago in fact, a very touching anecdote, and it has remained in my memory. He was a great, great saint and scholar. And remember let us remember that these were not just academic philosophers. They were practitioners, they were saints, they were enlightened people. So look at this anecdote. So this very great master of Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, I think he was contemporary with Vidyartha Swami Sayana Madhava, I think, Vedanta Desika. And his stature can be imagined that at one time 50 Advaita Vedanta scholars came and challenged the Vishishtadvaitins in Sri Lanka. And they invited Vedanta Desika to face these 50 scholars. And he debated all of them, and at least to a standstill, if not defeated all of them. And then he wrote this book, Shatadushan, 100 defects of Advaita Vedanta, not one or two. Ramanuja came up with the 7-fold defects. But Vedanta Desika came up with 100 defects of Advaita Vedanta. Not that Advaitins have let that go. There is a Shatabhushani, 100, let us say, the virtues of Advaita Vedanta. But the anecdote is, Vedanta Desika, imagine this tremendous scholar. In his native village, he is going on near the fields, and he finds these little children playing with a chariot, a little cart, wooden cart in which they are drawing Krishna. Krishna is sitting there, and the children are playing with that in the dust near the path, village path. And the children are offering to Krishna in the chariot little laddus made of clay from the soil. They made little laddus and offering it there, and they are imitating the priests. So they take those little laddus, and when Vedanta Desika passes by, this most revered person in the whole area, those little children, they offer him those clay laddus. Vedanta Desika, with tears pouring down his cheeks, he takes those laddus, puts it into his mouth and does a Shashtanga, full flat pranam in the dust there, uttering grace, grace. This is how Krishna gives his grace. So this was so touching. I read it nearly 30 years ago and I have never been able to forget it. This is this amalgamation of tremendous scholarship, philosophy, and deep love and devotion at the same time, the saintly life. Sri Ramakrishna referred to Ramanuja and Vishishtadvaita and the teachings of Vishishtadvaita a number of times. Oh, one more thing before I go ahead. A number of times our speakers have mentioned that these are not actually the names by which the masters would have referred to themselves. Ramanuja never used the word Vishishtadvaita, nor most of his followers in his early stages. Even Advaita Vedanta, Shankara never says, I am an Advaita Vedanti. Madhva never. In fact, if you ask the Madhva followers, they don't refer to themselves as Dvaita Vedantics. They use terms like Madhva Vedanta, Brahmavada, Vaidika Matam. But these are terms which are convenient for us, and you will find Indian philosophy textbooks will use these as the names of the chapters. Sri Ramakrishna referred to these teachings a number of times in the Kathamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. I remember about 20 years ago, a great scholar of Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, Sri Lakshmi Tatacharya, he came and he was giving us lectures, monks in Belur Math. And he said, I thoroughly enjoyed the Kathamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, because it is obviously a Vishishtadvaita text. So we have now Prabhratika Brajaprana Mataji from the convent in Santa Barbara, from the Vedanta Society of Southern California. And she is going to tell us about Vishishtadvaita and beyond as a part of Vivekananda Vedanta.